Good morning. I'm Sarah Rosa, and I am a Milspeak Writer addict. I first picked up my habit 5 weeks ago. It was under great peer pressure. I'm nearing the end of my career, so that's 20 years, and feeling a lot of pressure. I didn't know where to turn, and I saw a flyer on the educational wall bulletin, and it had Milspeak on it. So part of the advertisement says to write to this the founder of Milspeak and request that I be allowed to join the group. So very timidly I did email, and I was welcomed very warmly. And throughout this whole entire process, I had a very, very difficult time. The Marine Corps teaches you to compartmentalize, to remove yourself so that you can deal with external factors. And I've done that for more than half of my life. So this writing has taught me to open up. After I got done with my piece, which was last night, I was flipping through a magazine trying to relax, and I came across an advertisement. And this is what I want to give out to you. This advertisement said, "Be not afraid of moving slowly. Be more afraid of standing still." My piece is called "A Warrior Born of Warriors." I was born on an island, Paris Island. The words floated around me like the litany of ancient monks, and I was transported 42 years back in time. I really was born on an island, Isla Formosa, Taiwan, Republic of China. It's a small landmass off the lower hip of China, slightly smaller than Maryland and Delaware combined. My mother was 35 when she gave birth to me in the early hours of May 30th, 1967. Tuesday's child was full of grace, graceful, full of goodwill, consideration, and mercy, with the blessing and protection of God, or so the interpretation of that childhood lesson goes. I am Gemini, cheerful, articulate, curious, and clever. The Chinese who had governed the small island from afar set rules in place to control the population. One of these rules is known as one-child rule. Another rule was that you could only be married once in your lifetime unless you became a widow. Divorce was not an option. Each married couple could only have one child. If the child was born deformed, or was a girl, the couples were allowed to try for another boy. The rule was relaxed in the countryside because of the need for strong, healthy boys to help with farm work. For my mother, finally having a girl after 2 strong, healthy boys was the sweetest gift she had ever been given. But Asian society decreed that it was a curse to be a girl. This curse has followed me through all of my life. Weighing a scant 5.4 pounds when born, I was a bit smaller than the average 6.8 pounds birth rate for Asian girls. In 1967, the average rate for an American newborn girl was 7.8 pounds. Many strikes were against me when I was born. I was already a lower-class citizen by sex, and now physically the runt of the litter. My mother and father adored me. I was a miniature China doll. I was told that I didn't make the normal cooing sounds of an infant, that I never made a sound, and that I watched the world in silence. My brothers watched over me like hawks and treated me as if I was a princess. I guess in my tribe, I was considered a princess. My father was a great hunter and envied by many as a great warrior. I am Aborigine Taiwanese. I am of the original 9 bloodlines that formed the 9 tribes that inhabited the island of Taiwan, thousands and thousands of years. Before the Chinese, the Japanese, the Dutch, the Portuguese, the Koreans, the Russians, the British, and all other arrogant explorers and settlers that claimed the land in the name of their sovereigns had ever set foot on our soil. I am Unui. We are known as far as the neighboring islands and among the expeditions for our fierce headhunting techniques and our polyphonic singing style. We are the only people to ever use multiple tones harmoniously and weave in counterpoint harmony. It has been cataloged that nowhere in the world has there ever been a force as fierce as we, nor as musically complex, when using the human voice as the only instrument to create beautiful music. My father was the strongest and most cunning of all the hunters in the 9 tribes. He has had many heads displayed upon our threshold gates. None in the other tribes dared to cross him, nor become the focus of his hunt. Late into the evening, around the evening fires, his name was spoken with awe. From the beginning, clinging to their ignorant fears of us and our ways, the outsiders began to track us down, slaughter those who fought back, and enslave those who did not. The tribes no longer fought amongst themselves, for now they had a common enemy. We banded together and slowly pushed the colonists and settlers back towards the sea. News of these battles soon reached far across the continents. The Chinese, not wanting to lose their tenuous grip of power, decided to force the tribes back up into the inhabitable mountainous regions. They put up walls and fences around the outskirts of the corralled tribal territories. Thus, they could contain this backwards bunch of natives. They forbade anyone to cross into the restricted zone. Members of the tribe could leave the tribal territories at the risk of their own lives. Neither side wanted to cross the zone because in doing so would incur high potential for loss of life. We were one of the last tribes to become civilized by Western standards. A few weeks after my birth, my listlessness became more noticeable. My mom begged my dad to let her take me to the nearest hospital. At first, my dad refused. He said that I would get better. He gave offerings to the gods of my world. He pleaded with the God spirit that protects the children. He cried to the spirit of the earth, giver of strength and life. He sang to me. Villagers wearing their ceremonial feathers, painted beads, dyed leather, and bleached bones, danced the dances, hoping to catch the attention of the spirit gods, and in pleasing the spirits with their intricate patterns and strong moves, would then move them to heal me. During this time, my mother always helped me, never setting me down. The dark nights faded into dawn, and days turned into weeks. Finally, as the villagers, drenched with effort, their skin caked with dried sweat like the rim of a margarita glass, barely able to shuffle their blistered feet, they honored my father as they took themselves back to their own stone and grass-thatched huts. My father then relented. He walked my mother from our small tribal village to the fence line, where she would then cross the border into the outside world and take me to the hospital to get the white man's medicine. Being who he was, the great warrior, my dad would have been taunting death if he were to have crossed the fence line with him. For whomever would have killed him would have been celebrated with great honor, for in killing him would have been a great achievement. My mother could cross because she was female, and we know females are harmless. This was not to say that she did not risk being raped, assaulted, or enslaved if caught on the other side. Even though the major battles were over, there were still skirmishes between the different occupational forces and among other tribal members that had decided to blend in with the outsiders. That day, it took my mom many hours to walk from our village, through the fence line, down the mountain, to Cooley Christian Hospital. On the way, she had hid in damp crevices or damp caves, barely big enough for a small child, waiting for the boot to pass her by, or behind rocks and bushes, sometimes flattening herself and being so still that she melted into the shadows. When she finally arrived late that day, she was told that the clinic was closed and to come back tomorrow. My mom did not speak Hakka or Mandarin Chinese, so it took a while for the housekeeper of the clinic to explain to my mom that she had missed the clinic opening.